Good afternoon. Welcome and thank you all for joining our fourth Marketers Toolkit workshop, How to Talk to Your Global Customers in Their Native Language. This series was designed to help you build and sharpen your skills for the next level. My name is Esther Elkos, and I'm the head of networking events, networking and career development events at the American Marketing Association. We would like to extend our thanks to our Diamond event partner, Smartling, the leading translation management platform and language services provider to localize content across devices and platforms. We also appreciate our premium partner, Greenbook, a leading voice in the market research and consumer insights space, for supporting the AMA New York year-round. And finally, a special thank you to our dedicated board and volunteers who work behind the scenes to make events like this happen. AMA New York thrives in the center of the world's most influential business city, raising the profile of marketing, providing professional development and networking opportunities, and serving as a resource of marketing industry events and news. At AMA New York, we work every day to inspire, support, and celebrate brilliance in marketing. As a member, you have access to the most relevant and compelling knowledge base of data, tools, and people. For those of you who are not members yet, I invite you to join this dynamic organization to access essential resources in our library of how-to, benchmarking data, interactive tools, and best practices. Also expand your network and knowledge through a full schedule of events around marketing skills, career readiness, and emerging trends. You can also network among your peers and connect with leaders who help shape the future of marketing, and elevate your leadership profile by volunteering, providing expertise, and mentoring. We offer a wide variety of programs, so make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to stay tuned. Just as an overview of the next events, on March 18th, Leah Holtzman, head of global marketing at Amazon Pay, will share her story at our ongoing Women in Marketing series. Tune in and discover her top lessons learned in 20 years of experience and gain insights into the evolution of B2B marketing. On March 25th, join a fireside chat on marketing to changing America and gain actionable steps on how marketers and market researchers can better partner to bridge cultural gaps and better connect brands with all of their customers. And on April 7th, we'll engage in an insightful discussion as we dive into all things data with expert panelists from Google, Salesforce, and Cisco. If you're interested in joining AMA New York, you can sign up on our website. Please feel free to connect or to contact us if you have any questions regarding membership. Before we start this session, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat. Also you can connect with other marketers joining us today. And we'll leave about 15 minutes for Q&A. So now it's my pleasure to present our host, Adrian Kahn, who is the head of marketing at Smartling, responsible for conceptualizing and implementing worldwide omnichannel campaigns for the company. Adrian is co-host of The Log Show, a podcast that teaches you everything you need to know about language translation. Also, I would like to introduce Jordana. The pet industry is a dog-eat-dog world, and Jordana Burr knows all about it. Jordana works at Rover, an international company known for providing 5-star pet sitters and dog walkers in over 8 European markets. She leads up to the localization team and has been with the company since they acquired the organization. She previously worked for Dog Buddy in October of 2018. Without further ado, Adrian, please, the floor is all yours.
Esther, thanks so much. And Jordana, thank you as well for being here. It's great to have you.
Thanks. Super happy to be here with everyone.
Yeah, and it's great to see so many people have joined us today. I encourage you actually to, if you feel comfortable, to bring your video on so you could join us here in this format. And if not, that's okay too. But it's wonderful to see everybody who's joined. Feel free to also jump into the chat throughout the entire webinar, ask questions. We'll address them as we go so that you get the most out of today's webinar. And I really like that introduction, Esther, that you had of Jordanna. I feel like I've got to get a little bit of a more zippy intro. It's certainly the one that you had for Jordanna was appropriate considering her role at Rover. As a company, Smartling invests in this relationship with women in marketing because we simply believe that it's important to celebrate the good work of people, and in particular women in the fields in which we operate. And I'm really excited today to have Jordana Burr, who is not only a customer of Smartling, but also someone who I consider to be a friend and colleague, to share a story about her work in marketing, which I think is a compelling one, and her experiences being a female in the field of marketing. So Jordana, tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you end up as a marketer at Rover?
Yeah, so I put together a few very random photos here of my career so far. I live and work right now in Barcelona, but as you can probably tell, my accent is definitely not a native Spanish accent. So I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. I did an undergraduate degree in fashion and marketing at Ryerson University, which is a university in Canada, in Toronto. And then I spent about a good 12 years working in the travel and marketing industry, mostly around youth travel for high school students, so ages anywhere from like 14 to 18, 19 years old. So I have a few photos there. On the top right is one of the groups of students that I was in South Africa with. And then there's another photo in the bottom middle was our 17 magazine, so from New York. I thought it was a nice little one to add in there. We launched a summer program with all of the editors and stylists at 17 magazine, so students could really, experience different sides of the fashion industry and marketing, which was an amazingly fun program to launch. Obviously, I had to include some photos of my dog and my family. So I had to have two of the dogs so you can see who the primary person in my life is. So my dog Lomu, who's also very well traveled. So he's lived in Canada, in London, and now in Spain with us. And then after about 12 years of working, mostly on the creative side, decided to do an MBA, and felt, I think Adrian and I were chatting about this the other day, major imposter syndrome, because coming from the creative side, just not feeling, that I was good enough, or that I was going to be able to do all the finance and the math stuff that's involved in studying and undertaking something like this. So I spent a year at the University of Bath doing my MBA. I think that was about 4 or 5 years ago now. And then came to Spain. So it was a really fun adventure. The last photo there in the top middle I included was my COVID hobby. So I went from creative to business, and now I'm feeling that I need to go back to creative a little bit. So I started doing some hyper-realism pencil crayon art. If anybody's into that, please write me on LinkedIn, because I'm going to launch a site probably this weekend if Stripe will allow me to connect the accounts, which is currently on hold.
That's an incredible drawing, Jordana. I mean, I when I first saw this, I thought it was a photo. I can't believe that you actually drew that.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it was about like 80 hours of work, but I had not much else to do during the weekends of quarantine. So,
Did you have the crushed can on your desk to look at when you drew this, or did you do that all from sort of memory or
Oh,
what?
no, not from memory. God, no. I took a photo of it in a little light box, and then brought it onto my computer and brightened it up a little bit so I could see all the little details and fun things here and there.
Wow. Well, it's really cool. I appreciate your background and you're sharing your background with us here. Of course, I love Lomu. I hope that he pops into the video today. My dog Fitz might also, and we love dogs, so that may happen. So Jordana, tell us a little bit about your company. You work at Rover. Tell us about the company.
So Rover is a US-based, Seattle-based organization, and we provide, it's a marketplace for dog sitters and dog owners, or we'll say pet owners, because also cats, for people who want to connect to someone in their neighborhood who is also a pet lover and able to take care of their pet for whether it's a weekend away or a dog walk at lunch because they couldn't leave the office and you needed to let Fitz out, and has since grown. I believe Rover in the US was founded 2013, 2014. I was a part of Dog Buddy, which is the European competitor. And since then, in 2018, October of 2018, Rover acquired Dog Buddy to expand internationally. So I was a part of that team and expansion there.
Yeah, and that's actually exactly the story we're going to tell today, because you had an interesting journey, having started at Dog Buddy, getting acquired by Rover, and facing a unique challenge, and we'll get to that. But before we get to that specific story, tell us a little bit about the landscape of how Rover goes to market and the different content types that you're supporting to engage your users on a daily basis.
So yeah, that's a really great question and good intro here. I'm laughing at the "Somos the dog people," so we are the dog people tagline. We had a lot of fun with that one too. So we have at Rover, we have a website. We have a iOS and Android mobile applications. We're also, thank you. We also have communicate through social media, through our email campaigns. And then, there's various forms of media that we usually engage in pre-COVID. So there was a lot of content to localize and figure out how we were going to internationalize all of this. The Rover platform, when they acquired Dog Buddy, which was based in Barcelona, was purely in English. So we were looking to localize all of this content, and the company had grown so quickly that you have all of your different department heads managing their own content. So you have your help center, you have your your macros for your CX and customer support teams, and then you have the product, which is usually managed by either your engineers or the UX team. You have social media and all of your marketing campaigns. So we had to bring everyone together to say, okay, what do we need to actually localize and internationalize? Like, how much content is it? How are we going to do it? And that kind of led to this massive project that took 6 months for us to accomplish.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, because for those of you who are in the field of or work for businesses that are global, there's a huge amount of work that goes into translating and localizing the content, not just of the marketing website, but also of the iOS or Android applications, the web applications. Many attributes of the content experience have to be translated and localized for each market so that the user can use it. And as you're describing, Jordanna, when you were at Dog Buddy, you all had everything more or less under control when it came to translation localization, because your business was founded in Europe, where language is part of the daily life as you're surrounded by markets that speak different languages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So the team that I was managing at Dog Buddy prior to the acquisition was the name of the team is the country brand marketers. So we had a marketing head for our various countries, And each person was, you know, a native speaker in that language and was really connected to that, you know, local market. So was able to, you know, to advise the rest of the team when we were looking to launch product or, you know, a marketing campaign to say, hey, actually, you know, you know, in Sweden, it's, you know, it's actually illegal to, you know, to crate a dog for, you know, for any purposes other than transportation. Whereas in North America, you know, things like crate training are really common practice. So there's a lot of differences that you really need to be, you know, cognitive of, or have the expertise and be able to reach out to someone within the organization or even outside the organization that can help to really speak to that, to make sure that it's relevant in your target markets, right?
Exactly. So the interesting thing is that when Rover came along to acquire Dog Buddy, what were some of the challenges that you realized with your team rather quickly?
There were a lot of challenges, but the team was amazing, and everyone really learned from each other throughout. I think one of the biggest challenges was the fact that you can't just, you know, copy paste and then you have your product, you know, translated to another language. We had challenges with all sorts of like data formats, from currency to volume to you know, distances, and how far someone is like willing to travel, and do people have cars, or do, you know, more people walk or take the metro or, you know, the subway in these cities. So we had to kind of tweak everything to make sure that the product was properly localized and internationalized for all of these markets. One funny bug that we had when we were preparing was that we had the weight conversion from pounds to kilos for pets, and there was something in the back end that kept making the dog weights increase. So I would put in my, you know, we'd be testing it, and I would put in Lomu's weight at, you know, 60 or 70 pounds, and then it was getting, you know, doubled and tripled and quadrupled every time I went back into his profile.
Oopsie.
Yeah, which wouldn't, you know, I mean, he does like to snack, so I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna you know, hurt him on that side, but I don't think he would, you know, double or triple his weight. So there was a lot of, you know, issues like that that came up, and the team had to deal with along the way. And we had a great group of people that were put together for the project. So you know, it went smoothly after after a while.
Well, I do recall that you were given a pretty you sat down. Was it with the CTO of Rover? Who, remind me, who did you sit down with and start discussing this initiative to internationalize and translate the Rover application?
So I think there were a few conversations, but predominantly probably with our GM for international, and we had to kind of assign everyone these new roles, and, you know, who was going to be a part of managing the day-to-day business, and who was going to be a part of the, you know, the work that needed to happen in the background to make sure that this, you know, internationalization project could actually happen. So my manager at the time had come to me, and we didn't have really a localization team at Dog Buddy, and Rover didn't either, and said, hey, you know, we need someone to run this program, and you and your team are kind of the most global on that scale, and we're not going to be running marketing campaigns during this time, so, you know, would you be interested in doing this project? And I kind of laughed, and I was like, it's not that hard. You know, I could probably take on that and something else. And I was very, very, very wrong. But I think it's good to be wrong sometimes in your life and get surprised with new adventures. So it ended up being a team of about, think 40 or 50 people that were kind of pulled out of their day-to-day to work on this migration together. And it was really, really an amazing experience.
That's awesome. And I mean, there's a huge amount of work, as we were saying, that goes into making sure your product or application or your website content is available in multiple languages. And there are a number of different things that you prioritize with the team, internationalizing the app so that it could effectively be translated in things like pounds to kilos could easily be swapped out. You were looking to achieve a fully automated workflow so that as content was created, it would be seamlessly shipped off to a human translator. The translations would be done and then sent back to your repository, your website, things like that. And you also wanted to make sure that when users around the world were searching for dog walkers, they would find Rover. Is that right?
Yeah, of course. The internationalization and the language aspect is really important, because I mean, there's a lot of people, especially in Europe, where there's like freedom of movement, not right now, but hopefully soon again. And being able to speak to people in their own language was really important. So whether you're, someone who has the application in Italy, but you're from Spain, or you want to see the content in Spanish, but it needs to be still relevant in and for the Italian market, that's really important. So we implemented a language drop down so that everything would be still relevant, but you could read it in your own language. So that was done through things like placeholders in the code that are all country configured. So the content that's all hard coded, we were able to still just straight translate, but we had placeholders for things like currency and volumes if they change, phone numbers for support, and email and contact information. So that was all really, really important to us, and still is on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's the type of, oh, I should have probably skipped to this slide a minute ago, but
yeah, there we go.
When you're on a marketing or product team, how much detail goes into making the user experience that we get when we open up an app on a phone, for example. But I think that there's more than just the technical backend. It's a lot of decisions around the content and the general experience that you want to ensure that your customers have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And there's even things like with our SEO keywords I see here on the slide as well, that you have to be relevant. And this type of service is really different from traditional kennels, where when I was a kid, we had dogs my whole life, and if my grandmother or someone wasn't able to take care of them, then they had to go to a doggy hotel or a kennel, a local kennel. And when people are searching, a lot of the time still don't know that there are services like this available. So in certain markets, I think Germany, for example, rather than using the German translation for dog sitter, people actually search a lot more often in English for dog sitter. So having tools to be able to identify how people are trying to find solutions for their pets is really interesting to see that, and doing that research up front. So knowing, what are you going to call this service, or how are you going to optimize your site to be able to to get to people that might not know about you, or might not know that they even are looking for a service like this, but will find it through through other traditional routes.
Yeah, and we'll actually talk more about SEO because it's such an important part of marketing. And I love the story that you have about how you partner with your colleagues on this effort. We spoke moments ago about the importance that you and your team placed on making sure the translation process was fully automated. Can you talk a little bit about why this is important for Rover and how you've accomplished this?
Yeah, so our engineering teams use continuous deployment, which means that they're constantly deploying code for new product and feature updates to the website, to the apps, and there needs to be specific turnaround times, or we need to have, a line on specific turnaround times so that those things can happen in a particular order. And localization coming in and saying, hey, actually localization and all the translation is going to disrupt your entire code release, was a fun experience as well. So we had to figure out, okay, how much content is there? How quickly can people localize this in a way that we're not risking the quality of the content? And how do we set that up? So Smartling, we work with Smartling, and we are able to put together a system whereby the content comes in from the engineers. It goes directly to the translators, who are also internal team members, and they're able to localize it. We use the Slack integration as well. So if someone does have a question on one of the strings, they're able to open an issue and ask directly the engineers what they need to ask about the string. So if it's clarifying something, or sometimes there's human error, there's a typo, and then we're able to have that continuous feedback loop, which is critical to the entire operation on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that's great. One of the results of this is that you're able to actually scale the amount of work that you do, something that you wouldn't be able to do without software. And when we looked at the data, and this data was pulled before the end of 2020, you had produced over 650 translation jobs in the year of 2020, and you produced a very large volume of glossary terms. And the ability for you to manage this at scale and globally from a single platform is an advantage that you've been able to take to bring your product into market and make continuous updates. As you mentioned, your developers are working on a continuous deployment schedule, and without that infrastructure, you wouldn't have been able to realize that type of result.
Yeah, I think there's two major tools that are really cost saving and time saving for us. The glossary, which I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with localization on the call, but the glossary is basically like a dictionary of your company terms and services features. So it allows you to remain consistent. And I think, yeah, so we had over 3,000 different terms in there. And anytime that content comes up in translation, you might have, one person who's usually localizing might be away, or is out of the office sick, and the person who's filling in wouldn't know how to translate that word. So the glossary allows us to remain consistent when it comes up. It's, there's a little prompt that says, hey, use this word, or this is how this is translated in this language, which is really helpful. And I think the other part is the translation memory. So as we translate and localize more and more content, the ability to reuse anything that comes through, again, that's similar to a certain threshold, really makes things a lot quicker for the team. So you're never starting from scratch.
So we started to talk a little bit about SEO earlier, and I know that you are not the SEO in-house expert at Rover, but you partner with some people internally to ensure that your product is easily found in the markets that you operate in. So can you share a little bit, Jordana, about what you've learned from this partnership and what's important about international SEO to Rover?
Yeah, I think I don't think we invented anything new, but the way that we work together is really critical to to the brand awareness. And, you know, as I was saying before, there's a lot of people that, you know, don't know that these types of services exist. So you're almost creating a new market. And, you know, having to research in all these different languages. I don't think there's not actually, I know there's no one person at the organization that speaks all 10 languages that we have. So, you know, you need partners within the organization to be able to say, hey, these are the terms, like I know we use these words for the product, but, you know, if we pop these into, we use a tool called Ahrefs, one of many tools. If we pop these keywords into our tool, you know, there's all these, you know, myriad of content that comes out, different keywords and things that we could use. How do you actually decide on what you want to kind of target? And so we partner actually with our CX team because they really speak all the languages and they know the customers, and that partnership is really important to making sure that we have the right optimizations and the right content, and looking at that regularly as well. Yeah, the cadence of looking at that, we try to look at least quarterly, to as the market develops, to say, okay, in Germany, if no one knew what a dog sitter was before, you know, 3 months from now, are people actually searching for a dog sitter in the local language, or, you know, has it shifted to something else? So making those kind of little adjustments as we go is really important.
Yeah, and you've been bringing up the term dog sitter quite a bit, and I think that this is actually all lifted from your glossary. And in Smartling, customers can configure glossaries by language, so you can have a different response by language. And I think that this is just a really cool example that you could walk us through, Jordana, that demonstrates the difference between translation and localization, and how important it is to know the market in which you're trying to operate in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and remaining consistent as well. So, you know, even between French in France and French Canada, which we launched back in March 2020. Seems like forever ago now. There's differences, which is really interesting. So, you know, it might not always be the case. These might shift over time as we continue to kind of evolve, and more people discover the type of services that are available. But yeah, understanding, you know, when someone's searching for a dog sitter, do they want to become a dog sitter? Are they looking for someone to take care of their dog? Or are they searching for something completely different? That, you know, that this could potentially be a good call out too.
Yeah, I love looking at how customers develop their glossaries, because it really reveals a lot about how businesses are thinking about each of these markets and the level of research that they're doing to ensure their brand feels like it's a local brand. One, I'll show for everybody's benefit. This is a screenshot, one in which we've zoomed into the product, the Smartling product. But what you can see here is that the terminology, when it's surfaced in Smartling, is always highlighted with either, you know, with some sort of like an underline. Here it's been underlined in green to show the translator that the terminology here is in the glossary. And you can see, of course, there's a definition, there's a preferred translation, and we've made it super easy for the translator to select the target translation they want. And furthermore, all of the content that Rover translates through Smartling is translated in this environment where you can actually see the website or the mobile app that's being translated, which gives the translator more information about what words to choose when they go to translate all of the content into whatever language they're responsible for. And Jordanna, you mentioned that you're using the Slack integration to communicate with the translators and amongst your team.
Yeah, so the Slack integration is great for issues and questions, because even if you have context, let's say even visual context to see potentially where content is going to go, once it's translated. There's, you know, there's sometimes questions that people will have saying like, hey, is this, what's going to be in this placeholder? So there might be like a hard-coded, or sorry, a coded placeholder that just says, you know, date. So how is the date going to be formatted here? Because it might impact how the person localizes or translates the content. So through that, we're able to, you know, connect directly with the engineering team to, you know, to solve things quickly and make sure that we're meeting our, you know, our turnaround times with them. And previously we would have to, you know, flag a engineering head on Slack manually, hey, can you track down this job? And you'd have to manually input all of the content. They would have to then go into GitHub and try to find, you know, who deployed that content or who commit those strings for translation. So this has made everything a lot smoother. And we have kind of a record also of all of the questions and content that has happened over a period of time. So we're able to kind of look back on that when we're looking to improve and that process and say, you know, okay, where are the most common errors? Is it a certain type of job, or is it, you know, a source issue or a translation issue? So we're able to kind of analyze that data too.
Wow. Well, the results that you have realized with Smartling and your team are really impressive. You increased the amount of content you translated between 2018 and 19 by 427%. That occurred. That was right after the acquisition, right? So this is the scale into the new markets.
Yeah, and I believe we used the SLS team, so Smartling's language services team, to help with that, because the team we had was overloaded with so much content that it was just really hard to keep up and to keep meeting the, you know, the turnaround times. So so we partnered with Smartling again to use their own translators, and we're able to do that through the tool just by switching a workflow over to their team so that any additional content would flow to them, and set up our own workflows so that we could still have internal eyes on it before it was published and pulled back into the product. So that was useful in that 430% increase.
Yeah, it's always helpful to have a backup team ready to go, especially when you're scaling into so many different languages. And finally, Jordanna, how do you think about the results of this initiative? What are the key attributes that you and your team think about when you reflect on the efforts you and your team made to scale Rover into multiple languages?
That's a big question. I can tell you the things that we look at on a regular basis to measure are, you know, the volume of words, so the number of processed words that we've translated. So comparing that month on month, year on year. The cost, I think everyone would, you know, would need to look at the cost as well. You know, are we within budget? Are there, you know, are there areas where we could be more efficient with the budget? And we look at quality and the number of strings changed. So content that was previously translated that might come back in again with, you know, slight tweaks, like how much was that content changed from the original? So we use that as a way to measure quality. And then, yeah, we also measure the fuzzy matches, which is a metric of how much content that's come in, how much new content that's come in actually matches to the content that's in your translation memory. So we look at that on a regular basis as well. And, you know, we want that graph to go up and to the right because it means that our team can be more efficient in everything that they're doing.
The thing that, you know, in wrapping this up, Jordan, I think one of the attributes of content and consumer experiences that has me really interested basically every single day is that the sheer volume of content is just increasing at a crazy rate, because we used to go into a store to buy clothing. Now we do it all online. We used to go and bring our dogs to the dog kennel, and now we hire somebody to come take care of our pet or to walk our pet during the day, And that whole experience is powered through words. And as your team develops new experiences or new products that can be consumed, it's all supported by words. So starting with this foundation where you have a scalable infrastructure and a way to communicate with your team, your extended team, which is Smartling Translation, and all of the stakeholders is so vital for your success long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. It's a company of dog lovers, and we need to make sure that the content and everything that we put out there it reflects that. So,
yeah. Well, thanks, Jordanna. This was great. I'd love to open it up to any questions. If anybody has questions for myself or for Jordanna, we're here to support and answer them.
I think there was a question. Well, more of a question from Eugene. I just want to address that. I'm not a part of the team that manages.
No, it's not. It wasn't aimed at you. It was aimed at there's 30 dog lovers, and if they're going to hire them locally, they need to be aware. You did a great job, but Rover in the Triangle in North Carolina is about to get thrown out of the state.
Thank you.
I mean, aimed at you. It was just you're doing a great job.
No, I understand. I'm not a part of the team that manages when there's emergency issues, so I can't really speak to that. But I can say that I've worked and I've met everyone in the company, and they're a group of dog lovers. I think we have 70 dogs in the office, and or 70 dogs, and then there's the cats that stay at home mostly because I don't think they'd want to come into the office. And the team really does everything they can when there are situations like this. But at the same time, when the company gets to a certain size, similar to Airbnb, there are always situations and bad actors. But they always try to manage every situation with with urgency and with everything that they have at hand. So
we had another question come in, Jordanna. I'll read it out loud. It sounds like it might be directed towards me for representing Smartling, but the question is from Gabriella. Are you available to translate different content such as mail, apps, newsletters, or do you specialize in some type? Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that, well, the answer is we'll translate any content. We typically are working with digital content because that's the most agile content, and it's being produced and delivered on a regular basis. And Jordanna indeed is translating and localizing a wide variety of content for Rover. And I'll just pull up this slide as a refresher, but what we do is we develop robust integrations with popular content management systems, with marketing automation tools like Marketo, so that we can, and HubSpot, so that we can localize emails. And then you have the ability as a user to drag and drop files into Smartling, and then we translate them as well. So any type of content we translate, and as Jordanna mentioned, you can reuse the translations that you've created from your website for your newsletter, for your marketing brochures, things like that. Thanks for the question. Jordanna, maybe while the group thinks of another question, since this is a event for women in marketing, can you share a little bit more about your experience having navigated all of the changes that you've worked through, the acquisition specifically of Dog Buddy, and how you maintained a leadership role and realized the success that I believe you've realized at Rover?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. I think I've been with Dog Buddy and Rover almost 4 years now, or 3.5 years. And I think my role has changed 3 times in that period. So it's almost on a yearly basis, there's, something new. But my perspective is that I want to join a company, not a role. And the company and the people that you're with and you're surrounded by, that you're going to learn from, is the most important thing. So whether you're in marketing or operations or localization, which is kind of in the middle, take on what's given to you, take on the challenges, and what the important thing is to learn. So I think I went from marketing to product to now operations, and there's something that I really love and in each of them. And even though I started out in marketing, growing in and growing with the company is really the most interesting thing.
Jordana, we have a question from Eugene. One thing you would have done differently in Rover if you had to do it again?
Oh my gosh. Not underestimate the challenge of localizing for 8 markets in 6 months. I really underestimated the amount of work, and I think that was predominantly due to just not fully, no one understanding fully how much content there was. So now I think if anyone is looking to internationalize to a new market or for the first time outside of the country that their company is currently based in, one of the first things to do would be to get a handle on all of the various pieces of content that your company has, and start to prioritize, where you can kind of make some cuts if need be. Not every single podcast episode needs to be localized and captioned for every market right away, but the important stuff, so your trust and safety materials, your product, any onboarding materials, so things like that are really, really important to prioritize. I feel like we were kind of at the time flying the plane and building it as well. So any kind of foresight that you can have and speaking to other people who have done it is really, really helpful.
That's great. Jordana, we have another question. When developing advertising, how do you customize messages so they drive engagement for these 8 locations? Great question. It's very relevant based on the conversation you and I had just the other day.
Yeah, so I think it's a really good question. What's really important is that, like I was saying before, you can't copy paste. So if it's a product feature, that's kind of something that has to be relevant and internationalized for every market. But I'll give you an example of some marketing content that wasn't relevant for every market. We at Dog Buddy had started this campaign called the oh my gosh, I'm not remembering the name right now. The Pub Awards, Dog Friendly Pub Awards. Got it, it came to me. So we started this yearly campaign called the Dog Friendly Pub Awards. That was just in the UK. Anyone who here is from the UK, just shout. But the UK has a really big, pub culture, and going to the pub with your dog is really popular. And so we started this, vote for the most dog-friendly pub in the UK, and it was, consistently popular. We had, panel of judges who were from the industry. And it was just a really big success. So we said at one point, hey, couldn't this work in all the other markets as well? And the answer was no. So we started doing some research. Okay, what other markets have, a really nice pub or, beer hall culture where, it's dog friendly? We instantly thought of Germany. And when we actually went to go do some research, calling some pub owners, speaking with people, there just wasn't the interest and the same kind of, I guess, openness to it. And that wasn't because the Germans were being cold. It was actually quite the opposite. It's that it's just expected that every pub is dog friendly, and there wasn't really a competition. Like, everyone does lots of things for dogs in pubs in Germany, and you can walk into any restaurant or bar and it's totally fine. So it just wasn't something that we felt at the time was going to work there. And that might not be the decision forever. It might change, but when we were thinking about it, it just wasn't the right thing to do for us at that time. So I think that to sum that up, the advice is, it's very ad hoc, and you have to assess the factors of each market every time to see, whether something will or won't work.
My only commentary there, Jordana, is that dogs should be allowed in pubs everywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
they have so much fun. Fitz has been in a number of pubs and he loves it.
Yeah, as long as they're getting treats, my dog's happy.
Jordana, we've got another question from Eugene, and it's a follow-up to Gabriella's question. Different words in different languages mean different things and have different connotations. In one language, there can be a word that means something positive, and in a second language, it can be a racial slur. How do you handle that in localization, and being an international company, how do you avoid those problems? Fascinating question. Thank you.
Yes. The dog people was or is our tagline at the moment. Currently in the works to shake that up a bit, but more on that to come. So when Rover acquired Dog Buddy, there were a number of really important things like the tagline that needed to be localized, and we needed to make decisions on how we were going to do that. And it's really funny you mentioned that, Eugene, because the dog people, our Dutch country brand manager came up to me, I remember one day, and was like, hey, I saw that, we're supposed to think about the tagline, and just wanted to say that, the dog people in Dutch would be really bad. Like, I don't know what to do, because it's kind of the tagline, and like, I can't just translate it. So we ended up working with the marketing team at headquarters in the US to say, like, what are the important things? Like, what is the value and the tone of voice and the importance of the dog people? What does that actually mean? And in doing so, we were able to kind of work on a way that, it's not a direct translation, it's a localization, and find something that was relevant and on brand, but worked in each market. So whether we kept it in English or whether, it was translated a little bit differently or localized a little bit differently, was kind of how we dealt with it on a case-by-case basis. So we kind of identified where are the top things that are potentially, a challenge to do. So that's, anything like taglines, the name of the company even. Rover is a very common dog name in the US, but not so much in Europe. We can't change the name of the company, but there's challenges there that need to be considered, and working with a team that is knowledgeable and understands the languages is the most important thing. So you have to have a certain amount of trust in your team as well, I think, that they have that grasp and understanding of the product and are going to translate this in a way that it's going to communicate the same emotion. I hope that answers the question. It's a really hard question to answer.
It is. What I might add to that, Jordana, is that this is a really important attribute of preparing your content to be translated. Mm-hmm. And that's where people who are language specialists come in. They have experience with the regional market, with the language, and they can look at that glossary that we spoke about earlier, and they can go through every single word and terminology and add notes. For location-specific translations or localizations, you can add restricted or forbidden translations so that things like this don't get through the cracks. it's an incredible, you cannot, like, mistakes will happen. Like, companies will fall victim to mistakes here and there. So it's not only about how you prepare for it, but it's also about how you react to it. And one of the benefits of the integration that Jordana's team has with Smartling is that they can make changes to their translated content and deploy it almost instantaneously. So if the market does get feedback, give feedback, whether you find out about it on social media or you get a colleague who reports back on content that may not be culturally appropriate, or maybe it's just a typo, you have the ability to make changes quickly and correct them, not just in that one instance, but globally across all of your devices, all of your applications, things like that. Solid question. Thank you, Eugene. Terrific. Esther, I think we may have answered everybody's questions here. Before I turn it back to you, though, I'll share with everybody that Smartling has a user conference, or a conference rather, on April 14th. It's called Global Ready. And you're all invited. It's 100% free. We're going to have incredible speakers. We're going to have an incredible musical guest. It's going to feel more like a Netflix show than a conference. And you can register for it at smartling.com/conference. I just put a link into the chat. I hope to see you there. Thank you, Jordana.
Perfect. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, both Adrian and Jordana, for this great webinar and for the invitation to this conference. And thank you all for attending this event. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we will send tomorrow a post-event survey. So please feel free to share your feedback so we can continue improving our events. Also, don't forget to register for our upcoming Women in Marketing webinar. It will be on Thursday at the same time. And thank you all so much. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.